In this daily drop, I'm going to talk about what I think a producer's role is, especially for the type of work that I do. So let's go. Okay, everybody, here I am, and I need an extra week at this point. Sometimes you need an extra hour or two, sometimes an extra day. I wish I had an extra week leading up to what I have on my plate right now. And much of what I have on my plate relates to wearing the hat of being a producer. Now, there are different types of producers, and they can be broken up into different types of categories. And you even hear titles like executive producer, producer, co-producer, and then you have producers who work on different types of projects. They might be working on corporate projects, on episodic television, they're working on feature films, commercials, so on and so forth. But ultimately, in a strictly producer role sense, what I think and I believe the role of a producer is to be effectively responsible for the entire project. Now, there are things that will differentiate that. For instance, in feature films, you might have an executive producer attached to a project, and they may be the person who is bringing in money and or talent to the project, and that could be for cast and crew, but they're not necessarily tied to the day-to-day operations and the goings-on of a particular project or production. In my case, I live primarily in the corporate world when it comes to producing. Sometimes it ties into and can cross over into some commercial work. It can cross over into documentary work. But I think of myself as a producer that is responsible for everything when it comes to a project. Even when I'm doing something like work for Canon, where I happen to be on camera and delivering the educational content, all of those projects are projects that I produce. So I worked with the client in each one of those series that I produced to conceptualize what the project was going to be, decide where the project was going to be filmed or shot. We're not using film anymore, but you get the idea. And also hiring crew, securing locations, pulling permits, doing the production, post-production, post-supervising, delivery, all of that kind of stuff. Usually the distribution part of it is taken care of by the client, but there's still a lot of coordination in terms of how those assets are delivered before it actually gets distributed to said viewer for a particular project. So for me, when I look at that hat that I wear as a producer, I'm ultimately responsible for all aspects. Now, in the corporate world, a producer very oftentimes is also wearing the hat of a director. Not necessarily a director in the traditional sense or a showrunner for television, where you're involved with dreaming the script, maybe even working on the script or rewriting the script, and effectively making sure that those three departments, the director, the production design, and cinematography, are all working together as one unit, because that is how you get the job done. But for me, the producer sits outside of that triangle and is helping and enabling that entire production to get done from inception or conception to actual delivery. And that's the hat that I wear. I love it. I love the organizational component of it. I love the problem-solving component of it. I'm heading out of town in a couple of days to executive produce a big conference, and that's a little bit different. But ultimately, for the sphere that I am responsible for, which has to do with camera and sound for the production, it all comes back to me. So I am really the one who is responsible for the entire production, or at least that part of it that I am producing. So they're calling me the executive producer, but I really think of it not in the way that I mentioned before, where you're bringing talent and or money to the table, but more the producing aspect. And I also feel that for me personally, that I look at projects very much as a creative producer. So it's not just the administrative side and putting all of the pieces together. It's also being involved in the actual creative side of it, what it's going to look like, how it's going to tie into the brand strategy, the marketing message of what a company or organization is trying to do. So ultimately, as a producer, I'm responsible for everything. Even though people are wearing their hats and are responsible for their respective areas, it always comes back to me when I am wearing that hat. Sometimes it's nice to be a day player and just go out and DP, but if I had my choice, it would be as a producer. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.